Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to Andrea Speaks TV. I am your host, Andrea, and I'm bringing you commentary you can use. So, this is episode 38. That's right, y'all. This is episode 38. And today I want to talk to you about the protests and the economic crisis that's currently happening in Cuba. So I really found out more about what was going on today, and I had all the intentions of going live on tomorrow. But I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and go live. I had some time, so I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and go live and let you all know, my subscribers, my supporters, and let you all know exactly what's going on in Cuba and why that may be a cause for concern for us here in the US. Okay. So, again, welcome. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, I encourage you to subscribe. I share commentary that you can use. As I told you all in my very first video, one of the main reasons why I decided to create this channel is because due to the times that we're currently living in, there's so much information that is being pushed out to us in the news. It seems like things are, just pretty much happening and changing every single day. And so these are things that, it's not always popular news, but it is news that we need to know about, current news events that we need to know about so that we can make a plan to prepare and protect our family as well as our friends. So thank you all so much for being here, whether you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook. I appreciate you all so much. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, again, make sure you subscribe to Andrea Speaks TV right here on YouTube. Also, I encourage you to share this video with your family members or friends. And also, if you find the content useful, if you say, you know what, Andrea, I learned something, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button. When you do that, that allows more people to see my videos, and I want to help as many people as possible by sharing the information. Okay. All right, y'all. So the topic again today is the protests as well as the economic crisis in Cuba. So we're going to go ahead. And get started. I am sharing my screen with you. So as I go through the information, I did some research just to kind of, get an idea of what exactly is going on in Cuba. And as I read and share information with you, I'll also be showing pictures to give you a visual of exactly what is going on. All right. Hello, everyone who is tuning in. Thank you all again for your support. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into it. Again, we're going to talk about the protests and the economic crisis in Cuba. At the end of the video, I would love to know your thoughts about how you feel about what's going on. Do you feel like, as I'm going to share, there are calls for our current president as well as our country, the USA, to get involved, to intervene in what's going on in Cuba. So at the end of the video, I would love to know your thoughts. If you could put it in the comment or post it in the chat. Let me know how you feel about what's going on in Cuba. Okay. All right. So the information, the information that I'm going to share does come from USA Today. Now on the screen, as you can see, I have a picture of the country of Cuba. Not everyone may know exactly where Cuba is located. So again, I did want to post that so you all can see where the country of Cuba is as it relates to other parts of the world. And so I did gather just a few facts on the country of Cuba. This information does come from worldatlas.com. And so Cuba, as you all are looking on the screen there, Cuba, it says, according to my research, Cuba is a North American island, and it is located in the Caribbean. Okay, so you can see the bodies of water that surround the country. You see the Caribbean Sea, as well as the Gulf of Mexico. So it is a North American island in the Caribbean. It is actually divided into 15 provinces. And I think you should be able to see it. You may see the little lines that divide the different provinces, but there are 15 of them. The current population at the time of my research was 11 million people. So 11 million people are located in Cuba. And the capital city is actually Havana. And Havana is also a major port and an important economic, commercial, and industrial hub of Cuba. All right, so we're going to go to the next slide. All right, so the article that I'm going to be referring to comes from USA Today. And the title of the article says, "Thousands Protest, Dozens Arrested, and even one person dead, and what we know about the Cuba protest." All right, so I also included a picture on the screen, and it says thousands of Cubans took to the streets of Havana to protest. So I want to share some information from the article with you. Again, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you can stay connected when I do upload new content. Also share this video with family members or friends, and be sure to give me a thumbs up button in the end if you found the information to be useful, and you can say, you know what, I learned something from here. All right, so according to the article in USA Today, okay, the article says that thousands of Cuban protesters angered over food and medicine shortages. All right, so again, not only are people protesting, but there's also an economic crisis going on in Cuba. And the people are angry over what they say are food and medicine shortages. Okay. Also, there are electricity outages. Okay. These people took to the streets Sunday and Monday for the first time in nearly 30 years. All right. The article also goes on to say that the protests are a rare defiance of the communist government's intolerance for dissent. All right. Now, on Wednesday, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, for the first time, acknowledged government shortcomings after previously blaming the unrest on social media and what he claims is agitation from the U.S. All right, now, so here's what we know based on my research. Here's what I was able to find out so far about the demonstrations in Cuba. All right. So first of all, let's ask the question. All right. What started the Cuba protest? All right. So the article says that young protesters marched on Havana, which, as I shared earlier, is the island's capital. And they were chanting, "We want freedom." Okay. So they were heard to be said, they were heard as saying, chanting, "We want freedom." Now, demonstrations have also taken place in Miami, and I'm also learning that demonstrations are taking place in other parts of the country as well as the world. Okay. Now, in Miami, the article shares, has a sizable Cuban and Cuban American population. All right. So on the previous slide that I showed, you may or may not have seen. You can go back and rewatch the video. But you, let's see. All right, hold on just a minute, y'all. All right, I don't want to mess up anything, but if you look at the world map, right, if you look at a world map, you'll see that Miami, as far as like where everything, is located, Miami is not that far away on the world. Looking at the world map, Miami, which is in Florida, is not that far away, I don't believe, from Cuba. Okay. All right. So again, it's saying that Cuba has a sizable or very large Cuban and Cuban American population. Now, the protests were fueled in part by Cuba suffering its worst economic crisis in years, which has led to food shortages as well as high prices. Now, you all know, following me here on the channel, you all know that I have talked about food shortages. I've talked about the increases in consumer goods. So the same things that are being said that have happened in Cuba, we have seen some of those same effects. We've seen that happen here in the United States as well, okay? As well as all over the world. Now, one person was quoted as saying that we are fed up. Thousands of demonstrators throughout Cuba protest shortages and rising prices. Okay. And also the picture on the screen, you can see that it says that thousands of Cubans took to the streets of Havana to protest. Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. So as I'm reading, I'm just going to be sharing pictures to give you a visual. Now, here on this particular picture, it says demonstrators around the world show solidarity with anti-government protesters in Cuba. And again, they're protesting food shortages, high prices, as well as how they believe the government has handled the pandemic in their country. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please say hello. Let me know that you're tuned in. You can say hello in the chat. I always like to interact with my supporters. So if you leave a comment in the chat, I will respond. I may not be able to see it now because I am sharing my screen, but after the live is over, I'll go back and look at the comments. Okay. And I do respond to those who comment. All right. Now, a mixture of the pandemic, according to the article, it says a mixture of the pandemic as well as sanctions from former President Donald Trump and problems in the state-run economy have helped to cripple the Caribbean island. All right. Now, some protesters, it says, call for political change after 6 decades of Communist Party rule, beginning with Fidel Castro's revolution in the year 1959. Now, the last time there was a major demonstration in Cuba over economic hardship actually took place nearly 30 years ago in 1994, and that is according to the Associated Press. Okay, you all make sure you hit the thumbs up button, share this video, and also make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue. All right, now, how is Cuba reacting? What exactly is going on in Cuba? I'm going to go the next several slides. This one in particular, it says Cuban flags are raised and waved in downtown Fort Myers on Tuesday, July 13th, as part of a march demanding freedom for the Cuban people that are still in Cuba. Now, the event in Fort Myers was called the Walk for Cuba, and the picture says about 1,000 people attended the event. Okay. Now, let's talk about how Cuba is handling the demonstrations. Okay, on the screen, you can see what appears to be police cars. So the caption, this is from Getty Images. It says police cars are seen overturned in the street during demonstrations against Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel in Havana on July 11th. Okay. All right. So let's talk about how Cuba is handling how is Cuba reacting? Let's talk about that. So police, according to the article, it says police have arrested at least a dozen protesters and tear gassed. Okay, they're tear gassing Cubans in response to the unrest. Now, listen to this, y'all. Now, this what I'm about to read next is definitely a cause for concern. Okay, now it says that in talking about how Cuba is reacting, it says police have. Okay, let me read it again. Are y'all listening? Okay, police have arrested. This is what they're doing in Cuba. So police have arrested at least a dozen protesters. They have arrested at least a dozen protesters and tear gas Cubans in response to the unrest. Okay, now Cuban authorities blocked internet service. Let me say that again, y'all. Okay, Cuban authorities blocked internet service during the weekend unrest, this is in Cuba, to stem the flow of information outside of the country. Now, how do you all feel about that? So, according to this article, one of the ways that they say that Cuba or the Cuban government reacted to what is actually going on, they're saying that the Cuban authorities, okay, somehow they were able to block the internet service during the weekend unrest. And in doing that, they say that, the purpose of that was to stem the flow of information from outside the country. Okay. Now, I don't know about you all, but that's very concerning. Think about even in our country, what if, and who's to say that, our government, that, they have the capability to do that. But imagine in our country, wherever you are, imagine if someone was able to say, hey, you know what? we're going to block out the internet access for everyone. How would you feel about that? What do you think? What would that be like? I know a lot of people, several people may feel like, they got to have the internet. That's the way they stay connected, whether it's by using their cell phone. That affects your cell phone service, computer, being on your tablet, or, whatever electronic device you use. That's definitely something that would be of concern. Okay. All right. Someone in the chat said, yes, they did it in Texas too at the protest. Wow. So again, this is thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate you. Okay. Thank you. Protests, there are a lot of people who are standing in solidarity, and they're supporting the people of Cuba, not only the people of Cuba, but also Cuban Americans. Okay. So I shared in the article that protests were going on in Miami as well as Fort Myers. And then someone in the chat shared that it was happening in Texas too. Okay. So people from all over the country, as well as all parts of the world, are supporting what's happening in Cuba. Okay. All right. So let me get back to the article. I do want to share some other points with you. So again, let me repeat this, y'all. Think about this now. Cuban authorities, okay, somehow, I'm not sure how, Cuban authorities were able to block the internet service during the weekend unrest to stem the flow of information outside of the country. Okay. Now, Cuban President Diaz-Canel warned protesters they would face a strong response on Sunday. Okay. He was quoted as saying, "We are not going to hand over the sovereignty or the independence of the people." All right. He said, and that was reported by the Miami Herald. All right. Now, on Wednesday, President Diaz-Canel called for protesters to stop the violence during a televised address, all right, while also taking some government blame. All right. He was also quoted as saying, "We have to gain experience from the disturbances." He said, he also stated, "We also have to carry out a critical analysis of our problems in order to act and overcome and to avoid their repetition." So it sounds like to me that based on everything that's going on, he is, admitting on behalf of the government. He's saying, hey, we recognize this is a problem. This is maybe a learning experience, and we have to act and overcome and avoid this from happening again, repeating in the future. Okay. What do you all feel about that? Okay. Let me know in the comments. All right. Now, also the Prime Minister Manuel Marrero announced actions to improve the stability of the nation's national electricity system and customs flexibility for Cuban citizens to bring back food and medical supplies while traveling to foreign countries. So I'm assuming that there may have been a time before where, they may not have been able to bring anything into the country. If you all know more about this, please let me know. Again, this is something that I'm just really learning about today, but then there's also an opportunity for me to do more research. But they're saying that they were going to announce actions to improve the stability of the nation's national electricity system and customs flexibility for Cuban citizens to bring back food and medical supplies when traveling to foreign countries. Okay. All right. Again, thank you all so much. I have some more information to share, but for those who may just be joining, thank you all so much for tuning in to Andrea Speaks TV. You can follow me on Facebook as well as Instagram, at Andrea Speaks TV. And if you are watching, whether you're watching on Facebook, also make sure you subscribe to the channel. Just go to AndreaSpeaksTV.com. Look for the red button that says subscribe, click it, and you will be, you'll stay connected. You'll be able to stay connected with me whenever I upload new content weekly. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and I hope that you all are doing well, you and your families. All right. Okay, so let's continue to talk about what is going on in Cuba and the protests and the economic crisis that's currently happening right now. Okay. All right. Let's see. Also, it says on Wednesday he called for protesters to stop the violence during a televised address while also taking some government blame. I just read that. I told you all that they are admitting, hey, we know, we see what's happening. We know that the government, the Cuban government, is part to blame. So they're accepting responsibility and saying, hey, we need to take some actions to not only overcome this, but to make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay. All right, now what about the U.S. sanctions on Cuba? All right, the article shares that while former President Barack Obama thawed the U.S. While former President Barack Obama thawed the United States' tense relationship with Cuba, it says that President Biden has not lifted sanctions imposed on Cuba by the Trump administration. Now, President Joe Biden had promised to reverse Trump's policies on Cuba during the 2020 presidential campaign. Okay. All right. So to continue, let's see. There was a quote saying, at the very least, these protests, their size, scope, and their organic nature will force the Biden administration to think more deeply about Cuba, which has a back burner issue for the administration. All right. And that quote was from, let's see, Ryan C. Berg, who is an expert on Latin American at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Okay, so he was quoted as saying that to USA Today. Now, the White House press secretary Jen Psaki said Monday that the United States is assessing how we can be helpful directly to the people of Cuba. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide. All right, let's see. Okay, again, the nationwide unrest, which began on Sunday, was unprecedented in recent times. And it says that Cuba says it will allow travelers arriving in the country to bring in food, medicine, and other essentials without paying import duties. Okay. All right. Now, however, the article says Biden advisors have also said the administration was reviewing its Cuba policy and signaled that no changes were imminent. Now, Biden did express support for the Cuban protesters. He was quoted as saying the Cuban people are demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime. I'm sorry, let me say that again. The Cuban people are demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime, Biden told reporters Monday. And he also said that we call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence in their attempt to silence the voices of the people of Cuba. Okay. All right. Thank you all again for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Okay. Someone in the chat said this is good information. Yes, I agree. You know, even though a lot of times when we see news like this happening in other parts of the world, you know, some of us may say, well, you know what, it's not in my area, so it's not going to affect me. But this is a situation where it could very well affect all parts of the world. So I definitely think that it's something to be concerned about, especially when you have a government, the Cuban government, being able to block internet access for its people, pretty much almost like shutting them out of the world as it relates to sending and receiving information digitally. So the Cuban government was able to not only block the internet service, but they were saying that they did that to stem the flow of information outside of the country. So what is it, even with saying that and them doing that, what is it that what information are they trying to stop from being shared with other parts of the world? Okay, how do you all feel about that information? Okay, what do you think what is it that you think they know that they don't want to be shared with other parts of the world? Okay. All right. So again, let me go back to where I left off. All right. So Biden did express support for the Cuban protesters. He said, we call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence in their attempt to silence the voices of the people of Cuba. Now, on the screen, I am showing you a picture again. As I reported, several people are standing in solidarity with the people of Cuba. And it says in this aerial view, this is from Getty Images. In this aerial view, protesters shut down part of the Palmetto Expressway as they show their support for the people in Cuba. They have taken to the streets to protest on July 13th, 2021 in Miami, Florida. So we can see how the people are pretty much blocking the expressway, blocking the internet, and you can see the police cars there as well. All right, so many people, are very serious and standing in solidarity, showing their support for what's happening with the people of Cuba. Okay. All right, so that was my last slide, but I have a few more points that I want to share. All right, now it says so the last part of the article, the last heading says, what are Cubans in the U.S. saying? What's Patria y Vida? That's a saying in Spanish. All right, so someone was quoted as saying, what's causing the troubles in Cuba? Now listen to this, y'all, okay? This was a quote by John Suarez, who is the executive director at the Center for a Free Cuba. All right, he said that protests are a direct response to the Cuban government's policies. Okay, now listen to this, y'all. Exactly. Okay, so someone said in the chat they don't want the protesters to communicate. Exactly. All right. Also, they have their own vaccine, someone shared. Okay, so that's something that I didn't know about. So I learned something there as well. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that in the chat. All right. Now, so what are Cubans in the U.S. saying? What do we mean by, or what do they mean by the term Patria y Vida? Now, John Suarez was quoted as saying, what's causing the troubles in Cuba is the internal blockade that the regime has placed on Cubans. Okay, remember I asked the question, okay, what is it? Why do they not want information? Why do they not want their own people right there in Cuba sharing information with the rest of the world? So according to John Suarez, who is the executive director at the Center for a Free Cuba, says what's causing the troubles in Cuba is the internal blockade that the regime has placed on Cubans. All right, so he's saying pretty much is an internal thing, not so much outside forces or outside factors. Okay, but listen to this. He says that's why the Cubans are protesting the regime. They're not out front of the U.S. Embassy protesting the U.S. embargo. They're protesting the government because they know who's responsible for what they're suffering. Okay, it is not an accident. All right, now this is what he's saying. So I'm gonna read it again because somebody heard me, but they didn't hear me. Okay, you all get what I'm saying? Now listen to what he's saying. What are Cubans in the U.S. saying? All right. So again, according to John Suarez, who is the executive director at the Center for a Free Cuba, said that the protests are a direct response to the Cuban government's policies. All right, now he's quoted as saying, what's causing the troubles in Cuba is the internal blockade that the regime has placed on Cubans. All right, now he also goes on to say, that's why the Cubans are not protesting the regime. They're not out front of the U.S. Embassy protesting the U.S. embargo. They're actually protesting the government because they know who's responsible. Okay, they know who's responsible for what they're suffering. It's not an accident. Okay, so think about this, y'all. A lot of times, people may feel like, and it's been said, people may feel like this, they may believe this, that, the government is going to do everything in its power to protect the people. They, thinking about past leaders, past presidents, they're saying that they're for the American people. Help is on the way. We know exactly how to make things right. But in this particular case, according to John Suarez, he's saying that basically, even if the people were told that in Cuba, now from what I'm reading and based on my research, the Cuban government is very different than the U.S. Government in terms of, it seems like how much control, how much government control there is, things of that nature. It seems like, our governments are different in certain aspects, but seems like the people, according to what he's saying, the people of Cuba were able to see past all of that, and say that, hey, they're saying that the government, the Cuban government, is responsible for their suffering, and it's not an accident. Okay, maybe that they feel like this is by design. All right, so with that being said, y'all, think about that. Does that anyway sound kind of like what we may be going through right here in the United States? Now, I'm not anti-government. I'm not saying that. And, but I do want us to think about that. Even things, other things, news that we currently see, everything that's going on right now. Do you think that, and you know what, let me say this, history, there's documented history that, the government, sometimes, it just seems like the intentions, or rather the outcome, is not always in favor of the people. So again, according to John Suarez, he's saying that the people in Cuba are actually protesting the government because they're saying that the government is responsible for their suffering. So think about everything that is happening currently right here in the United States. People are, think about, the unemployment rate, different topics that are in the news right here in the United States. Just different things that are going on, poverty. Some people may even say, increases in crime, things that are happening here in our country. Do you think that, in certain ways, that would you say that the government, our government, would in any way be responsible for the things that are going on? And if so, do you think that this was an accident, or do you think it's by design? Okay. So that's something, I definitely want to pose the question and ask you, so that you can think about these things. And sometime when, we're told that, oh, we're somehow, and I'll say this too about the Black community, because I'm a Black female. And, a lot of times, in the news, it's put out there to us like, Black people are more susceptible to get this disease, or, the Black community, low income communities, things of that nature, different titles and different stereotypes that are, just negatively attached to us just because of our race. A lot of times it's just, it's kind of like, okay, well, you're saying this about us, but are these things true? And even though you're saying them about us, a lot of things, as we've learned, as I have learned over research, these things have been by design. Okay, so I'm going to be covering that in other videos on my channel. Please make sure you subscribe. But what I'm saying is, these people, the people in Cuba, they were able to see past what the government was telling them, and they're saying, hey, no, we know who's exactly responsible for our suffering, and we know that this is not an accident. In other words, you meant to do this to us. So think about what's happening in Cuba. Think about how we can apply that to our own situation right here in the United States. Does that make sense, y'all? Think about that. Okay. All right. He also goes on to say, John Suarez says, Cuban Americans feel strongly about what's happening. And he says it's been 60 years of dictatorship in the islands. So therefore, they're expressing their points of view to influence policy. Let me read that again, y'all. Think about what I just said. All right. So again, and I quote, he says, Cuban Americans feel strongly about what's happening. It's been 60 years of a dictatorship in the islands. And you can do your research and just see what has been happening in the country of Cuba over the past 60 years. But he says, so therefore, they're expressing their viewpoints and trying to influence policy. Okay. And that was also added by Jamie Suglicki, who is the director at the Cuban Studies Institute, okay, who's also said that Cubans are appreciative of support they're getting from outside of the island. And I did share several pictures with you of where people are standing in solidarity. They're having protests. Someone in the chat shared that they're having protests in Texas. I showed pictures from what's happening in Miami, like what's going on the screen, where they're pretty much blocking the expressway in protest, and also what is going on in Fort Myers. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much also the last thing I want to share. Cuban athletes. So athletes, who are have some degree of celebrity and who are known all over the world. Cuban athletes, the article says, are also Cuban athletes in the U.S. are also using their platform um, to support protesters in their home country. And just to give you some examples, at the MLB, Major League Baseball All-Star Game, New York Yankees pitcher Aroldis Chapman and Texas Rangers outfielder Adolis Garcia wore hats with the message SOS Cuba, and Patria Evita. Now, Patria Evita, which if you can see in the picture, someone is holding a banner that says Patria Evita. It says, according to the article, that means homeland and life, which is a play on the Cuban Communist Party's motto of homeland or death. All right. So again, that is information that I found and was shared through USA Today. I would love to know your thoughts in the chat. Let me know how you feel about what is going on in the country of Cuba, and what can we, how can we as Americans look at this situation and say, how are some of these things, are some of the same beliefs, the way that they're feeling, their actions, are we feeling like that as well? In our current, in the times that we're living in here in the United States. Okay. All right. So again, if you found the information to be helpful, please make sure you hit the thumbs up button. When you do that, that helps my video be seen by other people. And I want to share the information with as many people as possible. Also, make sure you share this video with family members and friends, and also subscribe to the channel if you have not already subscribed. So again, thank you all so much for your support. I do not take it lightly, and I appreciate you all so much. So again, this has been episode 38 of Andrea Speaks TV, where we talked about the protests and the economic crisis in Cuba. Now, if you did not watch the full video, please make sure you go back. As soon as I end the live, you'll be able to go back and watch it again. And please, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Someone said it's crazy. Someone in the chat said it's crazy. I think we need to be taking notes and prepare for ways to protect our family from similar events. Yes, I definitely agree. With everything that's happening in the news, I feel like there's always a lesson to be learned, and another reason to say, hey, you know what? This is why we need to have a plan, because with everything going on, y'all, we don't know what's going to happen. Okay. But as long as we can, have a plan in place and take actions to protect ourselves, our family members, and our friends, we would definitely be okay. All right. So again, thank you all so much for your support. I have several links in the description of the video. If you need emergency food supply or survival needs, you can definitely visit my website, which is preparewithandrea.com. Again, you can get your emergency food supply and survival needs at preparewithandrea.com. And again, my name is Andrea. I'm your host of Andrea Speaks TV. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel and watching the content, the videos that I upload. Thank you all so much. Again, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and until next time, take care. Thank you for watching Andrea Speaks TV.